Howdy. This is the Views from the Shop podcast, live on YouTube and on Twitter. It is Sunday, October 12th, 2025. And I wish you a very, very, very happy welcome to Vermont Day. Today's show continues the 2025 Summer Guest Series. Nope. I think this is at least the second time I've done that, and this is only the third episode here in the season preview series of 2025. It's the 2025 season preview series. We continue that series tonight. And tonight, we will talk about the Ohio State backcourt. We're going to break down every single player that is in that backcourt. Yes, even you, Braylon Nash, even you, Miles Harrow, those who you may not be familiar with, well, you're going to get familiar with them on this show. We'll talk about strengths and weaknesses generally overall when it comes to the Ohio State backcourt. And then we will close off the show and get out of here. You may be watching right now. You may have an eye on here. You may have an eye on a football game for another team that's playing in Ohio in the NFL right now. If you're here, I appreciate it a bunch. You've got a bunch of ways to follow the Views from the Shop podcast. As you know, I will paste these in the comments so they're as easy to get to as possible. There's a link to follow on Twitter, probably the best account to follow, but I, of course, encourage you follow all of the accounts. You can follow on Instagram as well. You can subscribe on YouTube. Most of the people who watch and who are live, I will say this, most will watch on Twitter if they're live. Can I please encourage you? Let me pull up a link right now. Just follow this link and hit subscribe and then click out. That's fine if that's what you got to do. But if you're watching live, I highly encourage you be there on YouTube as well, because there's extra episodes that will come out on YouTube that you won't see on Twitter. So highly, highly recommend you get there. It's just general housekeeping. And we've got a lot of new viewers and a lot of new listeners. Numbers really shoot up this time of year. So that's why I got to do this. You'll have to forgive me. But I'm dropping another link. There, if you listen on podcast and you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can go there. Actually, that's a Substack link. My bad. Let's talk about that now. Views from the Shot, podcast.substack.com. Highly recommend you get there. It's your number one central hub for Ohio State basketball exclusive content. I'm dropping articles there, interviews with players and prospects, things like that are being dropped there. Highly, highly, highly encourage you get there. There's also a chat feature there where just ask me for a free trial. I'll let you see it for a whole week. And you can see all the posts that I've had since I started this back in the portal. When it started, you can see all the hits that I've got. I don't know, honestly, if I have any or many misses. There's probably some, like, wording wise, you could say that's a miss. And I'm not going to tell you I'm perfect, but there's a lot of inside intel there. I told you about the Tennessee secret scrimmage months ago at this point. So would encourage you to get there as well. And then here comes some links. All right. I'm going to get you a link for Apple Podcasts. Get there. And then we're also on Spotify. I don't have that up in handy. I guess I didn't save it on my doc here. So that's it. Just know we're on Spotify as well. 5-star review goes a long way. You know the drill. So if you're new, this is the number one Ohio State basketball exclusive podcast. It's the only podcast that is publishing content year round, at least one episode on average every single week across the entire year. We're previewing and recapping every single game for Ohio State hoops. If you're into Ohio State hoops, or if you're a big Ohio State football fan and you're kind of into Ohio State basketball, you like to be informed, just subscribe. You don't have to watch every episode, listen to every episode, just be there, okay? Okay, let's preview the backcourt. I truly appreciate you being here, especially while our beloved Cincinnati Bengals, or maybe you hate the Cincinnati Bengals, they're in a tight one with the Packers, and it may or may not be on my cell phone right now as I watch. No vested interest. Certainly no money on this game. Bengals plus 14.5. I'm sorry, that was a little too easy. After the past 2 weeks, you may say that's crazy. I don't know. Maybe I know ball. Many say I don't. So you'll have to decide that for yourself. By the way, in the chat, say whatever you want, okay? Comment, like the video on YouTube, like this tweet if you're watching on Twitter. Let's get this to the masses. Okay, I've held you hostage long enough, kind of plugging my own stuff. Let's talk Ohio State hoops. Let's talk the backcourt. So, last show on Wednesday wasn't live, but it was still there. We we previewed the front court for Ohio State. I went player by player by jersey number. That's what we're doing today. So we start with John Mobley Jr., but we're gonna talk about every single player, their background, whether it just be how they played last year or their past couple years, because we've got a couple guys with some injuries, and then we'll talk about who we expect them to be this year, their player type and their role, how they fit, and things like that. And then to close the show, we'll talk about strengths, weaknesses here in the Ohio State backcourt. Thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it. Let's get into it. Let's start with John Mobley Jr., who my bold take last year, just about this time, I went into my season prediction show and I said, here's my bold take, guys. All right, get ready. Come close. John Mobley Jr. is going to finish second all time in Ohio State freshman three-pointers made in a season. He blew that away. That was not bold. It was not a hot take for me after all. He blew that record out of the water. And quite frankly, had Ohio State made NCAA tournament, made a couple more, or won a couple games in the Big Ten tournament, he probably would have broken D'Angelo Russell's record. So I went in, and I was real high on John Mobley Jr. Turns out I wasn't high enough. Last year, 13 points per game, 2.2 assists per game, 1.6 rebounds per game. He slashed 39, 39, 88. So that field goal percentage, not great, but he shot great from the three-point line and exceptional from the three-point line. Now, defensively, and we're going to talk about this. I know a lot of people have their takes and their opinions on John Mobley Jr. defensively. We'll talk about it. He did have a 5.8% defensive rebounding rate last year. That's really not good. The steal and block rate and just overall volume production, that was really poor. Nearly 2 personal fouls per game. That's not really an issue whatsoever. But defensively, certainly some fans would say I would have liked to seen more from John Mobley Jr. He started off the year. Man, this is what gives me the warm and fuzzies, okay? I think back to that 10 o'clock game against Texas to start the year. Really high not really high, but just optimistic about Ohio State basketball. It's back. Can they be good? First year with Jake Diebler, and we all know where we were, I think, to start last season. There was at least some optimism and a lot of curiosity, too. But in that game, Ohio State wins. They beat Texas. That looked like it was going to be a really, really good win and ended up being a good win for Ohio State. John Mobley Jr. in that game had 14 points, and he was perfect from behind the three-point line at 4 of 4. He had a great stretch in the winter, kind of late January into February, where he scored 12, 19, 20, 8, 21, 21, and 16 points in that late January to February window. He missed a game against UCLA due to illness. And then he closed the year not all that hot. He scored 4 points, then 8, then 18, then 20, then 7 and 8 points to close the year. And that feels pretty common when he shoots as many triples as John Mobley Jr. does. 74th percentile last season in three-point attempt rate among all players in college basketball. So he was up there taking a lot of threes. And at the end of the day, not only was he taking a lot of threes, but his scoring relatively volatile, I think, because of that. When you're not scoring as much, when it comes to just getting layups or getting the free throw line, a lot of your points are coming from the three-point line, it can make your scoring a little bit volatile. So the player that John Mobley is, the style he is, offensively, he's a three-point marksman. We knew this coming in. This is something that I talked about a lot going into last season was, look, this is a freshman. He's a 4-star. I think he was top 50-ish player in the nation, and there was a lot of good and a lot to be excited about for John Mobley Jr. coming into last season, and he hit threes. That's what he did. He had 4 games with 5 three-pointers made, and in 50% of the games that he played last season, looks like the Bengals are going to have a chance here, potentially against the Packers. If you're listening on podcasts later, I just imagine that you're watching live, okay? That's the only way that this can make sense for you, and you may not care. You may not know. You may not care about the NFL. I don't know. I like to think we're all sports fans here. 50% of his games last year, he made 3 or more three-pointers. He was 12 of 53, though. From mid-range, that's 23%. In other words, that's really, really bad. NCAA average last year, he was 13 points below that. On average, shots from the mid-range went in at a 36% rate. That's just average. That's median. And if that's where you're going to be as a three-point shooter, but you can't make shots on the mid-range, especially off the dribble as well, it was really bad. It's really bad for a shooter. That includes players like Evan Mahaffey taking shots from the mid-range, Sean Stewart, and all the other players in all of college basketball. So how can you have a player who's so good from behind the three-point line, but really, really bad from the mid-range? That's a great question I don't have an answer to. He was excellent off the ball as well. I think in terms of staying slippery, whenever I talk about John Mobley Jr., all I can say is, man, he was slippery off the ball with the ball in his hands. Even at that open practice a couple weeks ago, he just consistently was so difficult to guard. That short area quickness and agility that he's got, it's really, really great. Now, here's the thing. Defensively for John Mobley Jr., there's question marks for sure. Here's my thing, okay? I think a lot of fans last year kind of lamented John Mobley Jr.'s defensive ability. Quite frankly, I think, first of all, it's an easy take. He's a freshman. He's, 6'1 or 6'3". He's a lighter player. He's not that long, and he's a shooter. So all of those kind of traits kind of culminate in it's pretty easy for us to say he's bad defensively. I think, at least from what I've seen and what I've heard, he's been better in terms of activity, timing, in the passing lanes, things like that. And I can tell you, I was texting someone right before we went live. I said, just give me your thoughts on John Mobley Jr. essentially. Defensively, no issues, no concerns. So you can have your concerns. That's totally fine. Not going to tell you how to fan. But what I will say is that internally, I don't think that there's really question marks about John Mobley Jr.'s ability defensively for the Buckeyes this upcoming season. Also last year, I think at times he was a little bit careless with the basketball. 1.5 turnovers per game. That's 36th percentile, so not really good there. He was good for at least one turnover a game. That was just, you knew. John Mobley Jr. was going to have at least one turnover. It was a question of, is he going to have 1, 3, 5? He had several games with at least 3 turnovers. He had 2 games with 5. And the timing of the turnovers as well, it felt like it came at the worst time, where it's maybe a slow pass as you're rotating the ball across the wing and you're allowing a defender to jump out in the passing lane. I don't know what the case was a lot of times, but it felt like some of these turnovers, timing-wise, you just really struggle to be okay with. So that's kind of the player that John Mobley Jr. is. Volume shooter, but super efficient with the ball in his hands. Can hit from 3, slippery offensively. The role for him this season, the only question I have is, can you be more than just a shooter? His assist rate numbers last year, actually, let me pull that up. I would like to see his actual assist rate numbers. These come from College Basketball Analytics, CBBanalytics.com. Absolutely phenomenal website for a lot of great stats in college basketball. His assist rate was 15.3%. That was good for 62nd percentile in college basketball last season. So pretty solid there, but overall, I would like to maybe see a little bit more of, can you contribute offensively without just being a catch and shoot type player? Because again, he wasn't great off the dribble last year. I don't have those numbers on hand. I've seen them kind of float around. So that was a bit of an issue for him. I think rebounding numbers, they weren't really there either. Defensively, I don't really question that all that much, but I will say, can you bring more offensively than just shooting? We'll see. And the other question, I guess, would be, do you really need that? I mean, I guess it's a nice to have, but if you're scoring 15 points a game and you're slashing at, 42 and 40 and 88, then I don't really think you have anything to complain about when it comes to John Mobley Jr. So this is a really strong player for Ohio State. I said at the open practice, probably a bit of overzealousness, I guess I would admit. But look, he was hitting threes, and then he'd hit more threes, and then he'd snap at another 3 during this exhibition, scrimmage type of thing. He looked insane offensively. He looked like the best player on the floor. Defensively, he looked really good. So again, I've said this before. There's going to be nights where John Mobley Jr., he's in here, Devin Royal, Bruce Thornton, obviously, who we'll talk about coming up next, and Christoph Tilley. I think you look at those players, there's going to be nights where they are the best player on the floor. It's not going to be every night John Mobley Jr. is the best player on the floor, but some nights he will be. He's going to be really solid for Ohio State, I think, this upcoming season. Let's get on to Bruce Thornton now. Every time I talk about Bruce Thornton, this has to be said. There's never going to be another player like Bruce Thornton ever again in college basketball. You look at the direction we're moving in college athletics, you never, ever go backwards. You only go forward from one step. We're not going to go back to removing NIL. We're not going to go back to it being hard to transfer. We're not going to go back to you having to lose a year or not be able to, you have to sit out a year in order to play college basketball for your new team. Bengals are dead now. I see. Evan McPherson misses a field goal. So that said, who Bruce Thornton is, you're never going to have another Bruce Thornton. And I don't think fans will ever have the ability to appreciate him enough because, first of all, most fans, when it comes to Ohio State basketball, they watch football first, and that's fine. I get that. But you have that combined with this is a team that hasn't made the NCAA tournament with Bruce Thornton. And you casually say he's probably not that good, right? Like he's a good player for Ohio State, but he can't be that good if this team can't make it to the NCAA tournament. And he's number 21 all time in scoring for Ohio State. That number seems low. Probably should have double checked or fact checked, took a look at a couple different sources. But hey, according to this Google Doc here, which is as official as it gets, number 21 all time in Ohio State scoring among leaders for the Buckeyes. Number 10 all time in assists. Number 7 in 3-pointers made. Number 1 in free throw percentage. By the way, number 7 in true shooting percentage. And number 10 in win shares among all Buckeyes all time. This is one of the best players who will ever put on the scarlet and gray for Ohio State. And he enters his last season with the Buckeyes. You're never, ever, ever going to have a player like Bruce Thornton who produces at the same school for 4 years. Because if you have a Bruce Thornton now, he starts at Cincinnati or probably lower. He starts at Ohio. He starts at UT Martin or something like that for maybe academic reasons or character concerns, or maybe he's just a diamond in the rough, right? And then he transfers to Alabama. Or you have a player he's incredibly gifted, but he plays 1 or 2 or at most 3 years for the same program because they go to the NBA. That's not been the case for Bruce Thornton. He tested the waters. I think everyone pretty much knew he was going to be back at Ohio State last year. He would have had plenty of suitors, and I cannot overemphasize enough how big of a deal it is for Ohio State to retain Bruce Thornton this year, because I can tell you he would have gotten paid just about anywhere else. He would have got paid. It's a huge get for Ohio State just to keep him. Last season, 17.7 points per game, 4.6 assists per game, 3.4 rebounds per game, slash at 50, 42, 85. Highly, highly efficient. And defensively, talk about this a lot. Ohio State struggled defensively last year, rebounding. They struggled to not get into foul trouble. They were absolutely horrific at it. Bruce Thornton never fouled out. He had 1 game with 4 personal fouls. That game came against Valpo. Big deal. This is all while, by the way, playing 7 games. You may be floored. You may know this already. 7 games with how many minutes? Would you say like 35 plus minutes? Maybe even 38 plus minutes, 34 plus minutes. He played 7 games with 40 or more minutes. Played 7 games playing an entire regulation college basketball game in the Big Ten. This isn't, no offense to the MAC. This isn't the MAC. This isn't the Horizon. This is the Big Ten. He played 7 games with 40 minutes or more. He played 30 plus minutes in all but 3 games. He never missed a game. He only started to do so. And he averaged overall 36.2 minutes per game. He was number 2 in minutes per game in conference games last year in the Big Ten, only behind Nick Martinelli, who, I mean, he was playing with like Ronald McDonald, the guy who invented spoons that change color when they get cold, probably an usher from the stands, and then like Danny DeVito with a Jimmy John sub. That's who he was playing with because everyone got hurt on Northwestern. So the fact that he was number 2 and only behind Nick Martinelli, that's a big deal. He had 14 games last year with 20 plus points. He scored 30 plus points in 3 games last year, including a 33-point outburst. He had 7 games with 11 plus points and 6 plus assists. He was a do-it-all guy for Ohio State. I see we're getting a lot of new viewers now. I'm assuming because this Bengals game is pretty much over. Encourage you, just go back in the comments. You can see kind of in the chat there's a couple links. Please like this video on YouTube. Even if you're watching on Twitter, please like the video on YouTube. Get to viewsfromtheshot.substack.com as well. Subscribe there. It's completely free. Bruce Thornton is the most obvious glue guy in college basketball. Sometimes the glue guy is the 3-and-D wing. Other times it's the point guard who kind of scores 10 and 4, but he's not the focal point offensively. Bruce Thornton is Ohio State's glue guy. He's going to go into his 4th year as a captain, not as a starter, not as a letter winner, but as a freaking captain. That's insane to be a captain as a freshman back in the Chris Holtmann era where he was begging for anyone to step up and be a leader. Bruce Thornton, what's that guy as a freshman? 21.9% usage rate last year. He scores, he assists, he rebounds well for a guard, he defends, and he just leads. This is the glue guy for Ohio State. If he has to miss time, if he runs into injuries, if he gets into foul trouble, that's going to be an issue for Ohio State. This is clearly, far and away, the most valuable player on the team for Ohio State, at least in my opinion. I know at some point you can probably make the argument for Christoph Tilley. Hopefully you can make the argument for John Mobley Jr. or Devin Royal this year. But in terms of what they give you when they're on the floor, in terms of overall production and leadership, I mean, you're getting everything you could ask for and more in Bruce Thornton. He's a 3-level scorer as well. Excellent from the mid-range. He was 50% in the mid-range, 55% in the paint, and 60% at the rim, which is solid but not excellent. But you're also comparing that to like centers who are 60% at the rim and just posting up and throwing in a layup. Bruce Thornton is having 2 players crash on him. He's trying to make layups and over guys who are much taller than him, towering over him, a lot of traffic in the paint. So that 60% at the rim I don't think is really all that bad. The role for Bruce Thornton this year, I mean, is there anything that you need to say that we don't know at this point, right? Like, he's a leader. He's a facilitator at point guard for Ohio State. He's going to be a volume producer in multiple different areas when it comes to making three-pointers, when it comes to driving and scoring at the rim, when it comes to funneling the ball out and finding open men, when it comes to playing defense, rebounding, all the things that you need in a point guard and in a true leader, he does. Continuation is going to help him a lot this year in college basketball. Continuation is now in place. I think he's a player who benefits more than anyone else at Ohio State, and potentially more than just about anyone in all of college basketball based on his play style. This is a player who should be one of the best players in the conference and in the nation this year. Look, if Ohio State would have won 25 games last year, I know we're a far cry from that, but if we're watching Ohio State win 25 games last year, Bruce Thornton's probably an All-American with the exact same play that he has now. He may be a third-team All-American. It may not be first team, but he's getting the attention there. But because Ohio State didn't win, hasn't won since Bruce Thornton has been there, he doesn't get the attention that he probably deserves. The one thing that I would say with Bruce Thornton that you need to keep an eye on, he needs to get more comfortable pushing the tempo. Over 3 years, he's been a half-court point guard. He wants to settle in. He wants to get the ball across half court. He wants to get the play call. He wants to assess what's going on and kind of move from there. That's not what Jake Diebler wants. In the open practice that I was at, some other fans were at, if you paid attention, you saw Jake Diebler stopping practice at least twice to single out Gabe Cupps, and I believe the other was Tayson Chapman, and say, why are all 4 other guys sprinting down the floor and you're jogging up the floor with the ball in your hands? He wants this offense to push the tempo. I can tell you, I think there's frustration, at least last year, in terms of Bruce Thornton maybe at times not being more aggressive. They want him to be more aggressive. They want him to push the tempo. If he can do that this year, they're going to be really happy with him. Ohio State's going to be very, very successful with him as well. As always, feel free to drop your comments there in the chat, and please like the video. Wherever you're at, if you're on Twitter, if you're on YouTube, like it. Hit the heart, thumbs up, all that. Tayson Chapman, the next player I'll talk about here. So we've been talking about for players who return to Ohio State, what did they do last year? Well, Tayson Chapman did what I'm doing right now. That's sit down, basically. He missed the season with an ACL injury. He horrible time for an ACL injury. Is a point where Ohio State's roster was already constructed, and there's nothing you could really do. And not only that, but based on the timing of that injury for Tayson Chapman, he was never going to be able to play last season. In 17 games as a freshman, he averaged 1 point per game. Am I clear? Just 33% from the field, 27% from the three-point line. But remember, this is a former 4-star recruit. He's top 40 nationally. He was really, really highly coveted as a recruit, top 8-ish guard in his class. So he comes with some prestige, at least from high school. Now, the player in Tayson Chapman, I'll tell you one note I got this offseason on him. He's moving like an NBA player, which is very encouraging to hear. What I saw from him as a freshman at Ohio State was someone who was very timid with the ball in his hands in year 1 with the Buckeyes. It very much seemed like someone who didn't want to run the offense, but more so wanted to just kind of be a part of the offense. And if you're going to play point guard, you've got to be able to run the offense. In high school, He was a really good pull-up shooter. I think that's something that he was really, really strong in, and he didn't see that as much as well at Ohio State in that first year. So overall, I think just personality-wise, like even as you watch this team, if you're around the team, if you're looking at the players, I think just any general fan can see this if you watch the team play 30 games a year. Tayson Chapman seems a little bit more quiet, a little bit more reserved. I have no idea if this is the case off the floor, but that's how it feels on the floor. And again, if you're going to play point guard, you got to be a little bit more less cerebral and more vocal. So I wonder if that's something that he'll be able to show this year. Maybe that's just not his personality. I'm not a coach. I'm not sure that it matters. I'm not sure that we should care about that, but just something that I'm observing. So this year for Tayson Chapman, he's going to get some playing time. He'll kind of be battling with Gabe Cupps. I'll talk about Cupps in a second in terms of who's going to be the first off the bench between those two. But he's going to be kind of those first guards off the bench with Gabe's Cupps. He's absolutely going to get real minutes this year for Ohio State. They don't have any other options. Not that that's a bad thing, but you're going to see Tayson Chapman get real playing time this year for Ohio State. I guess the other thing I would say, he's back for a reason for the Buckeyes. He would have been an excellent pickup for like a Dayton. He would have been an excellent pickup for like a Nebraska, like any player like that who I guess was Tayson Chapman. Like you're a highly regarded recruit, and then you have to miss time. You don't get a lot of playing time as a freshman, and it can be easy to kind of get swept under the rug and forgotten about and fall through the cracks at a place like Ohio State. Jake Diebler wanted him back. I really questioned if he would be back. It sounded like there was a fair amount of back and forth and just questions overall about whether or not he would return to Ohio State, but he's back, so I would assume that he's probably back for a reason. Again, like Nebraska, Minnesota would have been a perfect fit, I think, as well. You get coaching churn. You're looking for a guy who maybe you're looking to capitalize on the NIL money you're getting in your first year, all the boosters trying to support you and things like that. It would have been perfect there. But Ohio State keeps him, and they want him back. And he's had a full offseason now to work with Jake Diebler. So I think for all those reasons, we can be encouraged about the development of Tayson Chapman this upcoming season. Again, as a freshman, offensively, he looked timid. He didn't really look like he was all that invested in like being a true producer. We'll see if he can take that step this upcoming year. All right, Gabe Cupps, got to take a sip. This time last week, I was taking a sip like after every player. I don't know why I was so parched, but feeling better tonight. Thanks for asking. Gabe Cupps, last 2 years. So we know him. I talked this time last week, went live, and we talked about all the newcomers for Ohio State, talked about Gabe Cupps, and talked about the TikTok scenario. Fellas, ladies, if y'all knew how much Gabe Cupps was making off of TikTok, along with playing basketball, you might throw up. You might. So his last 2 years, he had surgery in December for a torn meniscus. He only played 4 games. He missed the remainder of the year due to that injury. 6 minutes per game, didn't score a point. Okay. As a freshman, he played in 33 games, 21.7 minutes per game. That's real minutes. Other than being 36% from deep, at just over one three-pointer attempted per game. Stats pretty pedestrian. I've talked about this before. The team likes him. I've talked about this before. He organized workouts from the moments he was on campus. He's done what the staff has asked. Overall, every time I bring him up, and the staff says, yes, we like Gabe Cupps. At the end of the day, look, this is going to be the first player off the bench for Ohio State. He right now is guard 3, if you want to put it that way. Bruce Thornton, John Oley Jr., they come off the floor. It's not going to be Tayson Chapman. It's not going to be Matthew Gruchik. It's not going to be Colin White or anyone else that you want to talk about. In the backcourt, the first player off the bench, it's going to be Gabe Cupps. So I think, like, again, fans probably won't be that, I don't know, that excited about it. Texting with someone just about an hour ago, said he's going to be good for us. So I know that there's fans who kind of don't love the Gabe Cupps scenario. He's going to be fine. Miles Harrow, the next player, based on jersey number alone. That's how we're sorting out these players. So we'll talk about him. 3-star guard on sites where he was ranked, other sites not ranked. Comes in, he's listed at 6'3", 165. I'm assuming, I don't know if it's true, just a guy with a guess. I'm assuming he might be 6'3", 160, 6'3", 155, something like that. You're probably going to kind of, bump up the stats there on the weight for a guy who's undersized coming in out of Ohio State, but he's listed at 6'3", 165, okay? His offer list, quite frankly, pretty unimpressive. Cal Poly, SIU, Western Illinois. And another thing, too, he's a brother of Tyler Harrow. Like, it's not like you're going to have any problems getting exposure if you're Miles Harrow. He's going to be the last guy off the bench. He's going to come here, hopefully get stronger, get developed for a little bit, and then move to a program where you can contribute. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I'm just not going to spend a lot of time on a guy who's not going to see a lot of playing time this year. That doesn't mean he's a bad person. That doesn't mean you shouldn't root for him. That doesn't mean you should tear him down. You got to have guys at the end of the bench, okay? That's how college basketball works. That's how every sport works. Everyone's got a role. Doesn't mean he's any less valuable than anyone else. That's Miles Harrow. All right, Matthew Grujic. He joined the show, maybe a month ago or so at this point. And he told me how to pronounce his name. I practiced it a couple times. He said, no, try it this way. I tried it that way, and I still couldn't get it right. So the good thing, he goes by Gru. And I told you this last week as well. When he hits a 3 this year, if you're a Bengals fan, when T. Higgins, when he makes a catch, everyone in the stadium yells T. We want to do the same thing for Gru. We want to yell Gru whenever he hits a 3. So just be aware of that. I think right now, he's probably neck and neck in terms of the playing time that he's going to get compared to Taysom Chapman. This is a player in terms of overall measurables. Again, he's going to be underwhelming a little bit, but he comes from Europe. And when you come from Europe and you don't have great measurables, you're Jokic, you're Luka Doncic, you're players like that who are just super skilled, and they don't have to be all that athletic. They don't have to be that long because they just know how to play ball. So I think this is a player who he can snap in some threes. He can space for you. He's got some pretty good overall ability to rebound the ball and to know where to be on the floor. I think overall this is going to be a good player for Ohio State. I'm excited to see him and see how he fits in with Ohio State rotationally. Is he going to get more or less playing time than Taysom Chapman? That's a question that I would have if I were you, because I had the exact same question. But overall, he's won a lot of awards. He's been really impressive in the playing time that he's got and really competitive, like U18 amateur type basketball over there in Germany. And where else did he play? Like Spain or something like that. I might be completely making that up. But overall, wherever he's played, he's been really, really good. He's developed well. And again, he's barely 18 years old. He turned 18, I think, in early July, I want to say. It might have been early June. But he's barely 18 years old at this point. So that said, there's going to be a lot of room for him to develop. I mean, he seems like a solid guy, came on the show, and even, kind of, as you would imagine, you have someone on the show before, after recording, you just talk a little bit. He seems like a really, really solid guy. So I'm rooting for Grujic this year. I think he's going to be a really, really solid, maybe not necessarily 3-and-D type player, but similar on that small forward role where he can space the floor, he can hit some threes, he can drive, and he can score that way as well. Maybe a David Lighty type of player. Would we be upset if that's who we were? If he were David Lighty? I don't think so. Last thing I'll say, like I said, he's seen more ready than Ivan Negevon was seen last year. Negevon was not supposed to play over Austin Parks. You've heard me say that 100 billion times before. So I think we like him. Let's talk about Colin White. Last year, he kind of dealt with multiple injuries, including one that required knee surgery in the offseason. That limited his time to be on the floor. As I kind of asked about Colin White, for example, he's been hurt. He hasn't gotten a full offseason of work. I believe he's pretty much 100% full go at this point, maybe still managing some things in the rehab process. But because of that, I think he's probably going to be behind a guy like Matthew Grujic, at least early on in the year, because Grujic, I guess in his own right, he got to Ohio State late as well. So I don't know. Maybe not. My guess is that Gru plays over Colin White. at least at this point, in 19 games that White had last year, 1.1 points per game, 0.3 assists per game, 1.1 rebounds per game, 35% from the field, and 31% from the three-point line. You probably remember a couple really, really nice dunks from Colin White last year. You probably remember the three that he hit in the corner, I think, against USC. That was a good one. Overall, I liked his vision. I liked his ability to pass the ball, to move the ball. He seemed to get it offensively and defensively, even if the physical kind of lagged a step or two behind the mental of him understanding the game. That's how it felt to me. Again, I can be completely wrong on that, but I think overall, Colin White, the physical tools are developing. The mental tools are probably there. Again, the role for him, he's going to be fighting for playing time with Matthew Grujic. Again, I believe that he's pretty much fully healthy at this point, but my guess is that Grujic is over Colin White there at the 3. And by the way, so I talked about Devin Royal in the front court preview. I didn't really know where to slot him, but Royal is more of a 4-ish 3 than a 2-ish 3. Colin White, more of a 2-ish wing type player. Same for Matthew Grujic, so that's why I'm talking about these guys now. If you want thoughts on all the other players in the front court, then you know where to find that. All right, last player we'll talk about here is Braylon Nash. Again, thanks for being here. Oh, wow. I haven't checked our views for a while. The numbers have gone up again. I should probably starting this show at 7:30 because the views really start to grow as the show goes on. If you're new here, if you're just dropping on, please like the tweet where you see this live video. Go on YouTube as well. It's in the comments, in the chat. Go on YouTube, subscribe there. I'd love to get to 200 subscribers. It's a small number, I know, but it would be a nice milestone for me. Would love to get to 200 subscribers before the season starts, so would love it if you could help me get there. Thanks for being here. Really do appreciate it. Excited for Iowa State Hoops. Hope you follow the team with me this year. If you're new here, for the OGs, you know I love you. Braylon Nash, late add to the roster last season as a walk-on. He's from New Albany. Braylon Nash is kind of equivalent to potentially like the 6th quarterback on Ohio State's football roster who went to school at like Dublin Kaufman, and he wears 26, and he's never, ever, ever going to see the field. But man, he wants to be a Buckeye, and maybe one day he wants to coach, something like that. I don't know if that's the case for Braylon Nash. I'm just speaking for him at this point. But look, again, you need players like this to round out your roster. Here's what I will say, though, about Braylon Nash. From New Albany, probably knows exactly what it means to put that block O on his chest and wear it in the pride of that being at Ohio State. I think the coaching staff likes Braylon Nash. Do I think that they like him as like the first guard off the bench? No, that's Gabe Cupp's role. Do I think they like him as a guy to get 8 minutes per game? No, that's probably Colin White's role. But do they like Braylon Nash and see him more as just like a practice body? I think so. I mean, at the open practice a couple weeks ago, he hits a corner 3, quick catch and shoot opportunity, and he hits it. Could a lot of people hit a corner open 3 if given a chance? Yeah, but he hit his chance. He had his opportunity, and he hit it. I think the coaching staff likes him. 9 games last year, 1.6 minutes per game, garbage time player. Obviously, again, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has a role. That's the case for Braylon Nash. So, overall, I think Colin White, Colby Ballman last year, players like that who are just vocal. They bring the energy on the bench. Great guy to have in the locker room. I root for him a bunch because of, I've told the story before on Colby Ballman, my perspective on him, which was really, really special. Kind of same scenario here for Braylon Nash. Again, I think the coaching staff likes him, and I think that they value him. And I think you should too. Just because there's a guy at the end of the bench like Braylon Nash, wearing 55, by the way, that's a bold move. I love that. I love that from Braylon Nash. Whether it be him, whether it be Miles Harrow, guys who maybe aren't that heralded, but you still root for them because they play for your team, right? So you should. All right, let's get into strengths and concerns here. A sip of water. We'll do that, and then we'll get ready for Sunday Night Football, maybe empty the dishwasher. I don't know. I don't know what else I got to do when I get down there. Down there, because I'm in my attic, which may or may not have mold. And that's all I have to say about that. All right, strengths for the backcourt. I think this is one of the best 1-2 combos in the entire nation. Bruce Thornton, John Mobley Jr. You can look at Purdue with Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. I'm sorry. Braden Smith is a good player. I'm taking Bruce Thornton and John Mobley Jr. over Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. Call me crazy, all right? If a Purdue fan gets a hold of this, they may flame me, and that's fine. Honestly, bad press from Purdue, it's probably not the worst thing for this show. You look at Houston, Kentucky's got Otega Owa and Jalen Lowe from Pitt, I think, who obviously Ohio State saw last year. You look at UConn's backcourt, Louisville, Ryan Conwell, Isaac McNeely. That's a player Ohio State had interest in the portal. Washington, another backcourt that I think can be strong this year. But look, hey, how do we feel about Dickie V? Are we pro? Is it Views from the Shot? We got to take our stand right now, okay? Views from the Shot podcast has got to all come together here. Fans, subscribers, and me. We've got to make a decision. Are we pro or anti Dickie V? I don't want to be the guy who's anti Dickie V. And he ranked Ohio State as having the second best 1-2 combo in the backcourt in the nation this year. That's real. ESPN article found about an hour ago. You going to tell me we should be going up against Dickie V? That's a poor PR move if that's what we're going to do. So I think I'm going to veto anyone who says we're not in on that. And we're going to say, look, I agree with Dickie V. All right. You look at Bruce Thornton's production. You look at his experience, his do-it-all-liveness combined with John Mobley Jr.'s ability to shoot from deep, unlimited range, quick trigger, slipperiness is definitely a word. Off the ball, his ability to move defensively, I think these two are really, really strong. I've already talked about if you're coming in new here and you're saying John Mobley Jr. can't play defense, just can you rewind on a live show? I don't know. Go back to the recording. Right at the beginning, I talk about John Mobley Jr., him defensively, and what the those in the program have said. I'll leave it at that. I think he'll be okay. This could be a very, very fun year for Ohio State there in the backcourt. With Bruce Thornton and John Mobley Jr., they could be really good. The other strength, they're too deep from the 1 to the 3. Bruce Thornton, Gabe Cupps. John Mobley Jr., probably Tayson Chapman comes off the bench, I guess, after Mobley. And then you got Devin Royal at the 3 with Grujic and Colin White behind him. You're at least too deep at every spot here in the backcourt. And for that reason, I think that's a very clear strength. You look at last year, no offense to Aquez Glover, no offense to players who left the team, you struggled. You struggled to feel good when you didn't have your starting 5 in, or we'll talk about their core 4 from last year especially. This is going to be point guard, shooting guard, small forward. You're too deep there, and I think that's great for Ohio State to have. Another strength, I would say, offensive options. Let's talk about the core 4. Last year, Bruce Thornton, John Mobley Jr., Micah Parrish, Devin Royal. I don't remember the stat. I tweeted this out pretty much every game. When they didn't combine for X points, their record was bad. When they did combine for X amount of points, their record was good. And you could say, Tim, that's a pretty lazy take. If 4 players on your team and your leading scorers score a lot of points, then they're probably going to win. Yeah, that's true, but it was a lot of points that they needed. They were scoring like 85, 90, 95% of points at times for this team in some games. So if you didn't have those 4 scoring, you were done. This year, who can score? You've got, just in the backcourt, you've got Thornton, you've got Mobley, you've got Royal, you've got probably Tayson Chapman, you've got Matthew Grujic as well. I don't know, can Gabe Cupps score? Staff likes him, so I'm going to say, yeah, he probably can score at times. And that's not counting in the front court, Christoph Tilley, Brandon Knoll, and Amari Bynum. So the offensive options you've got, especially in the backcourt, where last year it was Thornton, Mobley, and Parrish. This year it's going to be Thornton, Mobley, and then 4 or 5 other players in the backcourt you think can get you a shot. That's a good thing for Ohio State. So offensive options, I think, is a strength for them as well. And then overall, the potential is through the roof here. Bruce Thornton, can he be an All-American type player this year? Yeah. I've had it spoken to me multiple times that he's getting All-American type money, so he better play like an All-American this year. Whether he gets the award or not, I feel like we can feel pretty confident that Bruce Thornton is going to be one of the top 15 players in the nation this year. John Mobley Jr., can he be one of the best scorers in the conference? I think that's very possible. Look at Matthew Grujic. You look at his ceiling. It's probably higher than most think. And again, I say it again, the program really, really likes Gabe Cupps as well. So the potential here in the backcourt to be really, really good, I think it's high. That ceiling is high. Concerns, I have a few. Not as many as I have in the front court in terms of amount and severity. But one I will say is defensive consistency. John Mobley Jr., heard good things, liked what I've seen from him in the offseason defensively. Can he put it together on a regular basis? Can Gabe Cupps truly be an on-ball hound? Can he slap the floor and just go and just go defend? You'd like to see it. You'd like to see it. Will it click for Tayson Chapman as well, offensively and defensively, but especially defensively for him? Man, I'm sorry to keep itching my nose if you're watching. Just like right. And I personally don't like how my nose looks on my face in the first place. So drawing more attention to it by itching every 10 seconds is not something I want to do tonight, but it's what I'm doing anyway. Another concern I got for Ohio State, size. They're bigger in the front court. We've talked about that already. They've got better size, but in the backcourt, okay, we've got Bruce Thornton and John Mobley Jr. both standing at 6'2". Tayson Chapman 6'4", but a little bit lighter. Gabe Cupps just 6'2". You've got Grujic and White, who are going to play the three. They're 6'6". I think Grujic is 6'7", White is 6'6", but your guards are small. They're on the lighter side. Bruce Thornton, look, if he wanted to stop playing basketball right now and just go play fullback for the New England Patriots, I think he could probably do it. But thickness, it's there. It's there in the hindquarters for Bruce Thornton. Outside of that, size in the backcourt, not great. Now, does that matter, though? Will the guards struggle to rebound? Last year, this was an offensive, or this was an awful and offensive, not offensive, offensive rebounding team overall. Guard play contributed to that. How much will they need that, though, if the front court is gobbling up missed shots? So it's a concern, but will it matter? I don't know. Look, other than that, I think that this backcourt, it can score. I think that they can shoot the ball. They have true passing, distributing prowess this year. Ball handling should be legit. I don't fear turnovers are going to be a consistent problem for this backcourt. So overall, I like this backcourt. I really, really do. So that's what I've got on the backcourt. I'm going to drop one more link here, and you can feel free. I'll kind of do what I did last week when we went live. A couple people were dropping some questions there at the end. If you want to ask your questions, feel free. I'm dropping a link there. viewsfromtheshotpodcast.substack.com. I, again, highly encourage you to go there. This is your hub, your central place for Ohio State basketball hoops content. If you subscribe, you can do it for completely free. Just throw your email in there. You'll get notified whenever I send a note out and whenever I send out a real article as well. I threw something out last or on Friday that I'm going to continue to do when it's warranted, called the Shot Sheet. That is where I just give you 2, 3, 4, 5 bullet points of news that you might have missed. Get it all right there in case you're like, man, I've been busy at work, or I don't know, whatever has gotten in the way of you from covering or being able to pay attention to Ohio State basketball. And you're like, man, I just need to reset. What's going on? That's the Shot Sheet is for you. So encourage you to subscribe there as well. I've also got a chat there. Again, ask me before you sign up. Seriously, do not sign up until you get a link from me for a free trial for 1 week. You get it for 1 week, and you can go back retroactively and look at all the other stuff I've posted there with insider info. Here's how this player looks. This player, their injury progress, all the way back to the portal and all the stuff that I shared there, scheduling nuggets, a whole bunch of other stuff, the open practice that Ohio State had, things like that. That was shared well in advance of when it was actually announced. So things like that would highly encourage you get there. But shoot me a DM on Twitter. I truly, this is great. I appreciate you investing in this show and helping me out. It allows me to justify spending more time on this show. So I appreciate it, but I'm not in it for just to take your money. I want you to get a free week first and experience it, and then figure out if you want to stay. Okay? That feels like the right thing to do. So any questions, you can throw them in the chat. If not, we'll get off here. I just hit my lamp there. You may have saw that. Here's the plan moving forward. I'll show you this now. So we just did the backcourt breakdown on Wednesday. We're going to do a non-conference schedule breakdown on Sunday. We'll be back here live on YouTube and on Twitter to break down the conference schedule and the Big Ten as a whole. Then I'm really excited for this. Worst case and best case scenarios for Ohio State. We'll drop some episodes there. We'll get to a preseason mailbag. That will be live. We'll get to predictions and superlatives. Our big-time prediction show will probably be over an hour long. And then we'll preview Ohio State taking on IU Indy in the first game that they will have in the upcoming season. And then we're off to the races for Ohio State basketball. So appreciate you being here. Again, please follow on Twitter. Please follow that link, viewsfromtheshotpodcast.substack. backcourt.com. Go there and subscribe for completely free. Do that. Highly encourage it. Other than that, I appreciate you watching today. This will be out on podcast tomorrow morning. In case you missed some of this, go there and give it a listen. But again, thanks for watching, listening along today. Enjoy your Sunday night football. Have a great week. I hope it's awesome. I hope you get a couple of blessings sent your way. Until next time, I shut up before you shut me off. Go Bucks.